First on the agenda is to sign the warrants. Do I have a motion to sign the warrants? Second? All in favor? So we need a motion to approve the minutes of October 4th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And what? And we need a motion to approve the minutes of October 18th.
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Old business auction update? Renee?
On our town website, we have listed the auction for the backhoe loader and the old ambulance. We had a guy come up from a company in Massachusetts that has it listed nationally, and there are actually some bids. The highest bid at this time on the loader is $1,025. So, and that the auction ends November 7th. So while he was here and out at our pit, he saw something he thought was worth something. It was an old gangway. It's been up there for at least a decade or more.
Is there any bids on that?
It's $10. But all bids are, we can refuse. Right.
Well, we can refuse a bid too.
He told me it was easier to put it on than to take it off. So it probably will be coming before the harbor board. So,
they agree.
Yeah.
Yes, agree. And what about the ambulance?
That's up to $250, I believe.
Well, nobody, if you're real serious, nobody bids for the last hour.
Yeah.
They really want it. Why would they bid? They'd be bidding against themselves. So don't forget to bid the last hour. Okay, next on the agenda is Frank's Dockside Restaurant liquor license renewal. Thank you for coming, Wanda. So nothing's changed?
No.
Alright. Well, I need a motion to accept Wanda's.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Alright. Just go ahead and sign this. Find the signature page. I want to go in here somewhere. Oh, such a nice drawing. Where is
I
the
think they
paper?
want blue ink.
Okay, did you read that they wanted blue ink? Okay. Okay, I don't know if that's blue. That's blue? Okay. I still can't find the municipal officers page. I'm looking for it.
That's blue.
So can you?
I just saw it.
Oh,
Right there.
no, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Okay, where? Oh, there it is. Okay, three is a charm. This is blue? Okay. Are you gonna fill this out? Or do you want me to sit in? Or no, just do it. Blue bag. County, Washington. November 1st. Time flies. Conditions. Then assign the municipal officers of the town of Lubac. Okay. Now I think we've got it. Okay, just share this pen Just to pin it down. Thank you for that blue ink advice. I think it should be blue. I hate when it's black, because you can think it's a copy.
Yes.
It's hard to tell
I
it's the
think that's how
original.
they do it.
There you go. So, Suzette is back there. Could she make her up something so she could take it with her?
Sure.
Suzette's actually back in the town office. She's not usually, but she's here for something tonight. If you want to take the original back to her, she'll make you a copy tonight so you don't have to come back.
Okay.
Okay?
So if it's blue, is it blue?
Black,
No,
It needs to be blue.
Make sure
Not
it's a blue
paying
one.
attention.
be black.
It has to be blue,
I'm gonna make you.
black and blue.
All right. Informational only. The next thing is town office closed Friday, November 10th for Veterans Day. Thanks for coming, Wanda. We love Frank's. Are you going to be open this winter at all?
I don't know. I hope so. As long as we keep it in the black, we'll stay open.
Okay. So we have an abatement to sign. So we have, let's see, okay, both of them, just one, that's it? Okay, so we agreed when we released, the Flatiron Corner that they would not pay, although it was free, that they would not pay taxes on. So that was the agreement for the next 5 years. So it's $785. So I need a motion to pass
So moved.
the abatement. Second? All in favor? Let's see, budget committee resignation. Do we have something to read?
There's a letter.
Okay, hi Renee, in response to your voicemail, yes, I will be stepping down from my position on the budget committee. Please let this email suffice as my official letter of resignation from the town of Lubec Budget Committee. It was my pleasure to serve, and I enjoyed working with you in the select board. Ginny Morano, because of her new business, we can't do it. So we are looking for a few members for the budget committee that will start around February. Do we start doing budget in February? And it'll last about 3 months. So we need some budget volunteers.
We need to accept that at all.
Oh, we need a motion to accept her resignation.
So moved.
All in favor? Second? Tony seconded? Okay.
Does this budget committee, ad, does it go on an ad on the town website?
It will, but I'll put it on community bulletin board. But you have to pretty much go out and roll up, yes. Yeah, use an umbrella. It's not easy. It's not an easy committee to sit on. Plus you have to monitor the school budget as well, which is important. Appointment papers. We have John Ennis, who wants to sit on the marijuana ordinance committee, and we are glad to appoint him to that.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to appoint John Ennis?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Good choice.
He's been doing a lot of research on what the other neighboring communities are doing, and some of them are only accepting cultivation, not accepting retail. There's all kinds of things all across the board going on now.
Yes.
And he was filling me in on that the other day. He came up to the town office and
And he's
offered to sit on the committee. I said, fantastic. I don't think they have been meeting that I know of, so we need to get that revived.
This in.
Last day for absentee voting is tomorrow, for the November 7th election. You have to come up by 4 o'clock tomorrow to pick your absentee ballot up if you want to be counted for the November 7th election. Other business. So, yeah, how do you want to start that? We had,
I do have a couple of things.
okay, go ahead.
First thing is, I've been approached by, Bill Ransdell.
Mhm.
He would like to rent the town garage, the old town garage
Mhm.
for his equipment, and it makes sense. I mean, he doesn't have to drag it to Cutler or drag it to West Lubec or.
But it's not under, we don't have it insured for any occupancy. That's why we moved.
But if he rents it with a clause that says,
You accept
you
responsibility.
know, right,
Yeah.
that he accepts responsibility for anything that
You
happens.
don't see a problem with that as long as MMA allows it under the, because even if you're, the owner of a property and you have a renter, the owner is still liable for anything that happens on the property
Mhm.
anyway, including the renter. So they probably have to take their own insurance out. It would have to be insured, otherwise we would get insured. You wanna check into that to see if that would work? Do you have a figure in mind?
She
Just wanted to know whether it would be interesting.
Right.
Well, we just need to run it by MMA insurance and see, our insurance and see if that would work. It's just for the winter
As long as it
season.
doesn't hold any, you're not needed, it doesn't,
Well, I don't know. I just know that it wasn't, safe to occupy by
Mhm.
us. So I don't know whether we can rent
So
it or
he's
not.
just parking machines in there, right?
But
yeah,
he still has to drive them in.
Yeah.
And get
And
out
move
of
out of there very quickly.
it. Pretty much. So I just don't know how that would work with our liability. But it's certainly, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Is there any power in there?
No, like, turn it on.
It's
all
the power,
yeah.
there's no
he'd
heat.
be willing to, turn it on or whatever.
Well, okay, why don't, the first thing is just check to see whether we can do that, and then why not, right?
And just
Other
an
business.
announcement about Veterans Day, there'll be a Veterans Day dinner at
We
1
did.
o'clock on Saturday, the 11th, and that is for veterans only. It's a turkey dinner.
Oh.
For veterans, so,
What day?
Saturday.
Saturday at the American Legion for veterans.
At the American Legion.
Very nice.
Okay.
And Ladies Auxiliary does that, don't they?
Well, they're helping, yep. I'm making the gravy, so don't eat the gravy.
And there you have it, the truth. No gravy. We had a ongoing complaint on barking dog, and we put that in other business because it was too late to get on the agenda. Did we have any, I did review the animal ordinance today, and along with speaking to the animal control officer, and I believe the question was, what has been done so far to alleviate the problem? And I thought I would ask Rhonda to give a little, without mentioning names, a summary.
Alright. I will do my best.
Come on up.
I numbered these, hopefully I won't leave any out. On the 21st of July was the first time I got a complaint about the barking dog. And that was from one caller and then a second one called. The 24th, which was 3 days later, I drove out and spoke to the person with the barking dog. On the 25th of the same month, July, I received an email complaint about the barking dog. I called the owner of the barking dog at that time, and I also went out and spoke to him, again. On the 27th, 2 days later, I got a call from the first person who had called me. It wasn't a new complaint, it was have I followed up on that complaint that I had gotten 6 days earlier. And I explained to her what I had done, and I explained to the owner of the dog that we did have a barking ordinance, which I did try to share. I also brought out some suggestions about reducing a dog's barking, things that you can put on the outside of the house or on the dog. I observed the dog with the owner. I checked and made sure that it had food and water in a shelter and that its leash was long enough. All those requirements were met. The owner didn't feel that he wanted to take the warning notice that I had or any of the suggestions. So I was not able to leave them, but I did have the conversation. On the 28th of July, I got a call from a third person who wanted to state that they also heard the dog barking in the previous week. Then we went a spell, almost a whole month, without any complaints. And I thought, oh my going out there having the chit chat has resolved the problem. And maybe that was not the proper approach, but it was a busy time during there. That's what I thought. On the 26th,
Are we into August
yes,
now?
we're into August. I got an email from one of the people who had spoke to me before about the barking dog, and I also received 2 letters that were delivered to the town office at that same time about the barking dog. So I went out and spoke to him one more time and tried to give him a follow-up warning for the barking dog. He refused that. So I came back to the town office and I spoke with Renee, and I followed up with a certified letter, so that, and it contained the dog ordinance in it about barking dogs. It also listed what he needed to do to abide by those rules. Then on the 16th of September, an email came from Karen. I'm sorry, what was her name? Okay, an email came, and I drove out to his house to speak with him, and he wasn't there. And I have to say, going through this fine-tooth comb yesterday and today, I did not respond to that email to the person that made the complaint. I didn't respond. I don't know why I didn't respond to that.
But you went to talk to him.
I did, but I didn't respond to the person that had
So
made
at
the
least you
complaint.
actually went out and talked to him.
I did, but
Kind of a response.
yes, but I didn't follow up with the person, so when I went through things that I saw that. Also on the 14th, which was the day before that, I actually heard the hound dog barking myself. So I drove over.
Where were you?
I was over on Maui Beach.
Oh.
And I did a drive over to the bar where I pick up dog poop and put boxes out. So I had to go there anyway, so I've been going there every week and kind of like, you know, keeping my ear out and doing a drive-by, kind of like, let's see what's going on. And I hadn't seen anything. So I was still kind of under the hopefulness that it had resolved itself.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because I read in the ordinance that the barking has to go on for, continuously for 10 minutes or intermittently for 30 minutes.
Yeah, all-
listen,
all
and you
four-
bark 10 minutes in
Right.
a row?
Yeah, and then I went over it and had quieted down. So I didn't actually go into his yard that time. But the complaints that came in, every complaint had a longer duration than that on it, of people.
How many people in all have complained?
5.
5.
Some of the emails were, they seem to be like a copy of exactly what another person had sent, like more of like a chain thing.
Mhm.
A couple of them were. Some of them were very heartfelt and directly written and in detail.
Now, is the owner gone for long periods of time? Do you know
Sometimes.
if you do
Yes,
know
but
this?
the dog isn't left tied out at night.
Yeah.
And sometimes when the barking complaints do come in, the person who owns the dog is there.
Mhm.
He's not gone away.
Mhm.
So then the next complaint that I have, it went another very long period of time until the 30th, when I received the email from Renee. And we had been discussing over this last month or so that maybe it was ready for a fine if this barking didn't stop. I did not fine the person. I sent a warning, and the warning said that if this didn't stop, we would fine them. I have not written him a fine. We were actually discussing this when the email came in, so I didn't write the fine because I was going to wait until I spoke with you tonight. I don't know whether the fine is going to stop the dog from barking. I think sometimes it's a little more than an animal issue at this point, though I go out there and directly deal with just the animal part of the issue, and the animal is well fed and well cared for. He is a hound dog. He does bay, and he is left tied out, and he does bay for longer than what our town ordinance states. But I don't know how. I mean, I can find him on that issue, but if it went to court, I haven't sat there and listened to him bay that amount of time. But there is statements from some of the neighbors that will validate that, and then of course they'd be taken to court, and I wouldn't be because I actually haven't witnessed it barking that length of time, but I'd have to sit up there.
Sure.
So far, I hasn't asked Renee if she wants me to do that, so. And I think that is all I had, on the barking dog ordinance, and,
So I
I'm happy to answer any questions, but.
I called a couple of the neighbors, the two immediate neighbors of the barking dog, and they both have lived there a very long time and don't have a problem with the dog because the dog barks in the daytime but not at night, and so they've never filed a complaint. And
When I got the first complaint, the other complaints came days after that. With the first complaint, I actually drove up to another neighbor, because it said in the animal control book that we had to, verify, do investigation. So I actually did speak to, one neighbor, and then another neighbor called me in a short amount of time, which is why I went to him and actually gave him the warning, because I felt like I had confirmed from at least two other people that the dog was barking excessively, and it wasn't really just a neighbor arguing with neighbor at that time, though those two neighbors were arguing with each other about things other than the dog, in my presence the first time I was there.
And is this dog barking at something specific or just barking?
I think he's just barking. He just howls. He's not tangled up anytime I've ever driven by. He's never been without water when I've stopped. Matter of fact, he often has food out there. He's of a good weight. His health is good. He doesn't look to be in any form of distress. There's 3 other little dogs in the house with him that when I've gone into the house, he's playing with those dogs and he seems to be fine.
Are the other dogs outside with him?
No, they're inside and he's outside. Yeah.
That's why he's barking.
He wants
That's
us
why he's
to
barking.
let him all in. Yeah.
He wants to play with his friends.
He's lonely.
On your initial complaint, when you followed up on it, and you spoke the initial complainant and then a backup to verify a complainant, did their complaint meet the statutory guidelines of 10 minutes continuous intermediate for a period of 30 minutes?
She felt it did. I did ask
She
her
felt
that. She felt it did. She didn't know the ordinance. She hadn't read the ordinance. I asked her about the ordinance and I told her that I was investigating to see whether the dog barked.
So they told you the dog barked for 10 continuous minutes
Yes, she did.
and intermittently for 30 minutes.
Yes, she did.
So they met the statutory guidelines.
Yes, they did. Yeah. But she also wasn't willing to sign any formal complaint to that.
Because you didn't witness it, you can hear it yourself.
I didn't hear it myself, and she didn't want to be involved.
So have you suggested to the owner that, or asked him why he doesn't let all the dogs out at one time? I mean, at the same time.
I think that I didn't ask that question directly, but in questions I asked, the hound dog seems to be more destructive in the home than the other ones, which is why he spends more time outside.
Is this a mid-sized dog, multicolored?
Yeah.
Because he's in the doghouse and towards the left rear of the house?
He was, but now most of the time he's hitched to the porch, but there is a house
Oh, and
gate,
that's on the porch still, yeah.
and that's where it's.
I saw him today, yeah.
But in defense too, I'm not sure that the owner knows the exact number of people that had complained. I didn't put that on the warning notice. I afterwards wasn't sure if I shouldn't have put that on there. Not their names, but just the number of complaints, so he would realize that it was multiple neighbors that were being bothered.
Do you think this can be mediated between the owner of the dog and the complainants that filed?
Now, I may be wrong in this thought. I did think that until Monday.
Sorry?
I did think that until Monday. I did think that.
has a public comment.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, so there's many witnesses to how long the dog barks. And I'm sick. I'm getting over it and not contagious. But I was home all day Saturday and Sunday in bed, and the dog barked all day long. You can hear the beach at quite a distance, probably a quarter mile from my house. I mean, it echoes up the road. So I don't know if the ordinance says neighbor, but I think anybody complaining about that barking, we all love dogs. We try to work in the situation just before, even speaking to Rhonda. And so it hasn't seemed to go anywhere within the owner's part. And appreciate everything Rhonda's done to, be really thoughtful in the way she approached it. It's just that some of the neighbors are gone for the summer, for the winter, excuse me. 2 neighbors I talked to in the last couple of days, are afraid to say anything, so they're not going to say anything. I don't know why they're afraid. I don't think they have reason to be, but that's their personal decision. And a neighbor that lives past the beach has even asked me about the barking, asked me, where is that coming from? Someone that recently bought a house, a local person that recently bought a house there, and you know, I told him where it was coming from. The dog's voice has definitely changed over the period. The dog's voice has changed because of all the barking. It's dramatically different than it was before. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. But the town, you know, I wanted to know what steps had been taken so far, so that it can be laid out, so that we knew what to do next. The town knew what to do next, because it's incredibly annoying. And the poor dog, you know, I mean, it just doesn't seem normal to me to, you know, bark. This is my neighbor Chris Barr.
Yeah, I know Chris, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I can also tell you that this has been going on all summer long, and there are days that dog starts barking by. I'm out on the beach with my dog at 6:30, 6:45. We're hearing the dog from 7:30 right through till 5 at night. And it just doesn't stop, and that's not normal. You know, I appreciate that the dog is fed and watered and so on, but it's not normal. That no dog should be under that kind of distress.
I don't know, it seems to anybody else, but it seems clear to me this dog wants to be with the other dogs.
Right, but as the animal control officer, I can make suggestions about the dog, and I did take suggestions to the person, but I can't make them do those suggestions.
And I called the state, I called Doug as well today and just said how much you've done and all, was there anything else we could do as a municipality? And there's no state statute for barking. It's all on us, the town. And of course, we don't have a magistrate or court, or we can, like Londa said, we can go to the next step with a fine, but.
Which we were planning.
Unless the dog is in some kind of danger, then.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Karen said that we could hit on is if this dog's tone of barking has changed, then his vocal cords are getting injured from barking. So if we go that way, with the health of the dog, that we believe.
It's we believe, I think it would be
Or
a very difficult thing to,
well, it would
but I did ask, I've shared the things that have come in from people with the state humane agent, and that means all things that have come in, and trying to keep track of that to see if there's any way to proceed with state regulations. So I have been trying to do that.
Yeah.
And I will continue to try to do it. I think the neighbors don't really need to be bothered by the barking dog on a continuous basis, and I really would like something to be done.
But if that was somehow alerted to the fact that this dog's barking has diminished so much or whatever changed, maybe he would suggest, you know, some kind of a collar, because they have more.
Yeah, in the
a bark
folder
collar.
I had a bark collar. I had made a picture of that, and I wrote right on there that I wasn't recommending any particular company because I copied it off the internet, like from the Jeffers company had bark collars, and there's also a box you can put on the side of your wall that if your dog barks, it gives off a high-pitched sound that nobody else hears, but the dog hears it, and the dog usually stops barking. I did take those suggestions to the person.
Yeah.
I don't know if the selectman, thinking about it today and walking around, if the selectman wrote the person with the barking dog a letter along with something from me, and we did put in there that there were multiple neighbors. Maybe that would hold more weight. I'm not a law enforcement person in particular, and I don't think that I come across as particularly a law enforcement person when I go and speak to people about their dogs. I informed them I'm the animal control officer, but I don't think I seem like a very law enforcement person.
How long is this person gone at any given time? Is he gone all day?
It doesn't matter, sometimes they're home.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and
he is
sometimes
home when
they're
I've gotten
gone,
a
so it
complaint.
doesn't really-
Okay, but the
No,
dog
no
is
reason
still
for that.
outside. So when the dog is inside, it's not barking.
Well,
doesn't bark
in
at
the
night.
morning, when I walk by there, the dogs are barking, they get up on by the window, you know, but you don't hear it like you do when they're outside, when he's outside. It's his hound dog.
Well, so you would like us to write a letter saying?
I wanted to, I was just offering it as a,
That's-
I don't know if, how the people who have the complaint feel about that, or how you folks feel about whether we wanted to send that kind of letter, or if we wanted to, enforce a fine at this point, or if we wanted to do both. I sort of feel like those are our options at this point.
Wouldn't, with regard to enforcing the fine, require that one of the complainants come forward and provide a written statement?
And they
to
have
the-
done that, they have done it.
Yeah, 'cause we've got multiple written statements.
Yeah, we've gotta do something.
But we haven't fined him before, and it does give us a variance of what we would opt to fine someone to. It's not one direction.
I feel bad for the dog.
Yeah, I do too. And I guess if I were to write a letter, it would give the owner choices of, you know, you let the other dogs out so they can play together, and maybe there won't be, see if that subsides some of the barking. And if not, have somebody come take care of the dog, play with the dog. And, you know, ultimately, it would mean a fine or get rid of the dog. And he needs to know
I
that.
can fine him, but I can't tell them to get rid of the dog.
Yeah.
I did ask the state about that, and that would be a legal option for me, so I
You know,
didn't do
the
it.
dogs help.
Do
And
you,
then
Yeah.
I think
do
I read
you have
some,
suggestions of what you thought the town could do?
Well, personally, at this point, I think the ordinance should be enforced. It's been months, and we tried to be really
meaning,
kind.
No,
That's
fine.
fine. I
Fine.
think that's the next step.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think
You
a
know,
fine.
and whether he pays it or not is another issue, but, it's
It's-
something that, you know, I making suggestions hasn't worked in the past.
No, well, there's an issue where they have to have the dog licensed. And there's multiple dogs, so that would be imposing, financial, I'd say the first thing would be to, one, you'll have to register all your dogs. Two, the fine according to the ordinance is no less than $25, no more than $100. I wouldn't put on the daily thing, but we could ask for all the dogs to be registered and a fine for the barking, kind of something like, with your input. I think
What if he
after
doesn't
3
get it?
months. I don't know, it's a civil offense, is it not? It says in the ordinance it's civil offense. We don't have a magistrate, I do know whether the, you know, Julie and I passed municipal prosecution, but
Yeah.
I don't know how we go to the court. I guess you should go to small claims
I
court.
was
Yeah,
just
we're allowed to go to
gonna
small
say,
claims
it's
court.
$5,000
We are,
you
they
can
told
go
me
to.
I could go to small claims court. You can come to small claims court and go, you wanna collect the money. But that would be some way of, that makes sense. A letter
Yeah,
with the
Yeah.
mandatory register your dogs and
yeah,
it's been 3 months, so a fine for the barking.
yeah. It seems clear he doesn't care if he's not hearing it. He doesn't, you know, it doesn't bother.
Well, he
I have
refused
a
to.
question. I have one other question. So, from what you're saying and checking with the state officials, are you saying the state of Maine doesn't have a nuisance, a noise nuisance, ordinance or law either?
At least when it concerns to barking dogs, that's the only part I can answer. I don't know if they
I
have
think the
nuisance
police will
law.
come out for disturbing the peace at some point, he told me, but it's has nothing to do with the animal control of the
That's right, I
state.
think there's
He
several.
told me,
but-
and that's a
separate.
civil matter between you, that is not the town, that's not a town matter. That would be between the neighbor and the officers.
Isn't there some kind of a, I don't wanna say it's an ordinance, but, that you have to register your dog every year?
Yes.
And you have to do it in January, it seems like when I had a dog, January you got the notice, and that if you didn't, you could get
Yes,
fined
it was
each time,
February
each day
1st,
that you
right?
filed.
Yes.
They're
Yeah, so-
available from October 15th until January 31st. After that, it's a mandated late fee.
So he needs to
So
come
you have from
register.
October to
Has he,
January.
he hasn't registered the dog?
No,
He needs to come register.
that was
the
the
dog.
warning.
Ah.
It's a separate issue from this, but that's
But
why I
I mean,
didn't
that
mention it
could be
here.
put in a letter as well.
But he refused both warnings, right?
The one he accepted, he signed for the certified letter, so I know he received that one. Carrie said it right there.
So did he sign up for the certified letter?
Yes.
He received it.
And that said, they register the dogs
Yes.
as well,
It
as it's
Which
stuck
I've
in
checked with
barking.
Renee and Suzette and everyone in the office regularly to see whether they were, had been licensed or they hadn't been. It was ongoing.
Bummer.
And you have to have a rabies shot for that too, you have to come and provide rabies, so that's another thing. That's one of the reasons why you register the dog, right, so that they
That's
have
a
proof of the
rabies
shots?
Mhm.
Well,
We have to do what we have to do.
be able to send a letter then.
All right.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks.
tag. Okay.
Any other comments?
Is that to go ahead with a fine?
Yeah.
It's to go ahead with the letter that we're gonna,
Ron to do that.
well, no, we can set the
We're
fine.
doing to the
It had to be
certified letter.
no less than 25, no more than 100. So he'll have to pay 25 each for each of the 4 dogs, right? Each register, how much is the dog license?
25, we didn't register last year.
Okay, well,
It doesn't
let's
carry forward.
just
Oh, okay.
start with this
We're
year.
gonna do
So that'll be
6,000.
100 for the registration, plus he has to get the
$6,000
shots.
dog.
How much for the
Six.
barking?
Oh, for barking, that's 25.
Okay, let's go back. How much does the dog license?
6 if they're fixed, 11 if they're not.
Oh, 6 if they're fixed, 11 if they're not. So that's not too much. They will rabies clinic to get the shots. So we can set it no less than 25, no more than 100. What would you like to do? I'm open to suggestions from the board.
50 hours. Down the
Sounds-
middle.
Sounds reasonable. Have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so
Do you wanna titrate it if there's a second offense, you wanna increase the fine if it?
no.
Yeah.
He needs to get a limit. He has like 2 weeks to pay the
Yeah.
fine.
He hasn't,
2
he
weeks to
hasn't
get the dogs
licensed,
registered. How does that sound?
he hasn't licensed any of the 4 dogs.
2 weeks from the
Now,
date of delivery.
No, but one was licensed under
Somebody
a
else.
previous partner of his. The other 2 I couldn't find.
Does that sound good, Rhonda? 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2 weeks to get the registrations and the fine paid and the shots for the
I don't
dogs.
think he's gonna find the rabies clinic, so then have to go to the vet and
Well,
get the vet
go
to
to
give us a certificate.
1 fine for 2 violations, just to be
No.
clear,
Yeah, yes.
or 2 separate fines for 2
No.
separate.
No,
One fine.
just go ahead and get them registered now.
Exorbitant.
You know, it's just- You're lucky to get the dogs shots registered and it stops barking. And you'll send us the letter that we constructed.
I'm sorry that
Rhonda, and
happened. Yes. I know in my neighborhood, there are lots of dogs that bark whenever I whistle for my cat. My cat doesn't care, the dogs all respond, I know.
Well, it's just the day in and day out, all summer long, because I have gardens, out there. Even in the house here.
Sure.
So, thank you for working on it. Appreciate it.
Let's hope it works.
And get better.
I hope you feel better. Right. We are at executive session. So we need a motion to go into executive session for confidential records M1 MSRA 4056F. Make a motion, second.
So moved. Yes.
So moved. All in favor? You can send me the motion.
And do the meeting afterwards.
Just for video.
Let's get that. We're doing a hearing, so. Public comment. Do you have a public comment right now?
No.
You're just gonna dismiss the committee updates.
So we have to return after executive session.
No, you're not gonna miss anything. We should probably have done committee updates. I am going to, do a presentation